everybody's in a hurry. To get the job done, move on to the next task. The little details like sweeping up after the job, or putting supplies and tools back inside, or stopping that little leak are so easy to skip. It's easy to ignore that little pool of oil left on the ground, or a little acid from a leaking battery. To use a storm drain as a cleaning station. A quick squirt from the hose. To take a little shortcut rather than disposing of that leftover solvent properly. To leave a dumpster uncovered. To just ignore some material from a broken bag or sack. To leave a pallet of raw materials left exposed to the weather.
Taking a look at the weather, it's clear and sunny this morning, but there's another storm front coming our way. This one's moving in from the northeast. Heavy rains, gusty winds, and possible flooding in some areas. Could be a gully washer. Heaviest accumulations are expected in Fillmore and Sandon counties as the storm moves on through the state.
What's the harm? It's only a little bit of industrial material and waste running off into that storm drain or this drainage ditch, right?
Or I gotta clean that up.
Well, multiply that by 150,000. That's the number of industrial, commercial, and government facilities where this could happen any day. Add it up. Then multiply that by the number of times it rains or snows on each of these facilities. Then think about the last time you passed by a creek with an oil sheen. Or think about the fact that more than 12,000 beaches have to be temporarily closed each year, often due to contaminated runoff. Isn't protecting the rivers, streams, and beaches worth the couple of extra minutes it takes to really finish the job? You've probably heard about stormwater pollution before. Stormwater pollution occurs anytime chemicals, petroleum products, wastes, herbicides, pesticides, or other industrial-type materials are washed away with the stormwater runoff or snowmelt. Preventing stormwater pollution from industrial and government facilities has been the law of the land for over a decade. But passing a law or writing a regulation doesn't fix the problem. The problem is that 35 to 45% of surface waters in the country still do not meet minimum water quality standards. That's why your facility has written and implemented a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, or SW3P. This plan describes how your facility will protect stormwater runoff from contamination by industrial materials and wastes. The plan names the stormwater coordinator, or stormwater team for the facility, and sets up a schedule for regular site inspections to ensure that stormwater runoff is being protected. But the most important work is done by people like you. People on the job who take a little extra time to protect stormwater runoff. You do it by using what the EPA calls Best Management Practices, or BMPs. BMPs come in many forms, from structural BMPs, like secondary containment around bulk tanks that captures and holds any leaks or ruptures, to operational BMPs. Operational BMPs are the everyday work practices that we can and must do to protect stormwater. We call these the everyday BMPs. There are 8 categories of everyday BMPs. One or more of these will likely apply to nearly any work you do outdoors. Good housekeeping is possibly the best and most effective thing you can do to protect stormwater. Good housekeeping means keeping outdoor work areas neat and orderly, keeping all materials, supplies, and wastes under control, and protected from exposure to the weather. Make sure all containers are clearly labeled, and keep them securely closed except when removing or adding material. If you discover a leak or drip, put a drip pan underneath it while you see to it that it gets fixed right away. Clean up your work area regularly. Follow the cleaning schedule described in your stormwater plan. Pick up scraps. Clean up any drips or spills. Thoroughly sweep up dust and debris, and dispose of the wastes completely and properly. Any industrial materials used, stored, processed, or moved outdoors must be handled to avoid exposure to stormwater. Understand and follow any written procedures for loading and unloading. Offloading supplies or materials from a delivery truck, especially when there is no dock, can be tricky. Load and unload under a roof overhang or shelter if possible, or in a place where spills can be contained and kept away from storm drains and ditches. That way, any spills are protected from the weather. The same goes for outdoor storage. Don't let materials remain where they can be exposed to stormwater. Move them indoors if possible. If not, put them under a roof overhang or shelter. Or you can temporarily cover them with a well-secured, waterproof tarp. If you use a temporary tarp, make sure to check it regularly for damage, tears, or loosening by the wind. If a spill, leak, or accident involving a non-hazardous material should occur, know the proper ways to clean it up. Proper spill response procedures are outlined in your stormwater plan. See that all spills are cleaned up quickly and thoroughly. Leaving them for a more convenient time only allows the material to be spread by wind or vehicle traffic. Know where the nearest spill response kit or cabinet is located. Know the supplies and materials it contains and how to use each of them effectively and safely. Understand what types of spills each kit is designed to handle: solids, liquids, petroleum products, acids, or caustics. Your responsibility for spill cleanup will depend on the type and amount of material spilled, on your level of spill cleanup and response training, and on the types of spill response and personal protective equipment available to you. Always use dry cleanup methods like sweeping for solids, powders, or granular materials. For spills of liquids or sludges, spread absorbents and allow them to thoroughly absorb the material, and then sweep it up completely. Never hose down a spill or just blow it away. That doesn't really clean it up. It just moves it around and makes it easier to be picked up by stormwater runoff. Anything that winds up in the storm drain or ditch, other than clean runoff, is an illicit discharge and is strictly prohibited. And finally, know where and how to dispose of the cleanup wastes properly. Some spill cleanup wastes may require disposal at specially permitted facilities. If a hazardous substance is spilled, or if the volume of the spill is more than you can handle, unless you've been trained and equipped as a hazmat technician or specialist, you may not be able to safely clean it up. But you must quickly notify your supervisor, the facility emergency response coordinator, or stormwater coordinator about the incident so that proper response protocols can be activated. One thing you may be able to do, even with a hazardous spill, is to prevent the material from escaping into the storm drainage system. If you can do so without risking exposure, cover or place absorbents like these socks around storm drain inlets or entrances to drainage ditches. Anytime you're involved in vehicle or equipment fueling, outdoor maintenance, or cleaning operations, you're probably dealing with potential stormwater pollutants. Fuels, lubricants, hydraulic fluid, solvents, degreasers, paint, detergents, even dirty rags. All these materials can contaminate stormwater. So, do maintenance work indoors if possible. If you must do this work outdoors, place a drop cloth under any sources of drips, leaks, or waste. Put used parts and supplies where they will not leave residues that might be picked up by the rain. Put them on the drop cloth or inside a leak-tight container. And use that drip pan to catch any drips or leaks. Don't let leaking equipment or vehicles remain outdoors. Either drain it immediately or move it indoors. Washing of vehicles or equipment should be done indoors or under cover whenever possible, and the wastewater discharged to the sanitary sewer if allowed. If washing must be done outdoors, use only clean water without detergents, and do it on a bermed impervious surface like this diked concrete pad, where the wastewater can be completely contained. The same basic principles apply if you conduct any manufacturing, fabrication, or assembly work outdoors. If possible, move this work indoors. But if you must do the work outdoors, keep all your supplies and materials secure. Keep containers closed when not in use, and place drip pans underneath containers while in use. Watch for drips or leaks from your supplies and equipment. Drop cloths can catch many stormwater pollutants. Shut down operations that can be repaired right away, or place temporary drip pans under leaks of equipment that cannot be shut down immediately. Be aware of all wastes generated by your operations and how they are managed. Keep wastes under control and, if possible, not exposed to the weather. And clean up your outdoor work area when finished or at the end of your shift. Most leaks and drips can be prevented from ever occurring if the equipment is properly maintained. Perform all preventive maintenance according to the schedule in your stormwater plan, or SOPs. Replace gaskets, seals, packing glands, and hoses with the recommended replacement parts on a regular schedule before they fail or start to leak. Make all recommended inspections and periodic adjustments. If any problems or malfunctions are found, get them fixed right away. Wastes are always a problem for the environment, and they are a special problem for stormwater. Because they are wastes, people often neglect them, but they can and do contaminate stormwater. Never use storm sewers, drains, or ditches for waste disposal. Dumping wastes, hosing them down, or running pipes directly into a stormwater drainage device is an illicit discharge and is just the same as throwing it directly into the nearest stream or river. Make sure all the wastes you generate on your job are properly disposed of. The hazardous waste accumulation container for the hazardous wastes, the recycling container for the recyclables, and the scrap bin. Or if the trash receptacle is outdoors, the covered or leak-tight dumpster. Dumpsters are for solid trash only. Never put any liquids or liquid-containing wastes in any outdoor trash receptacles. And remember, the lid goes down and stays down when it's not in use. There is one waste that has to be handled with extra care: the rainwater and snowmelt that can accumulate in secondary containments or other open-top structures. This secondary containment protects the gasoline, diesel fuel, and used oil tanks against leaks or rupture, but rainwater may have to be drained periodically. Many such structures have drain valves, pipes, or ejectors to allow draining. These devices must be kept securely closed at all times, except while actually draining rainwater. If water must be drained, such as when the equipment needs servicing or the water level becomes too high, the accumulated rainwater must be clean and free of contamination. If the tank is leaked or overflowed, the rainwater may have been contaminated and cannot be discharged into the environment. A supervisor or other designated person must determine that the rainwater is clean before okaying the discharge. He or she will also make a record of the event for filing with the stormwater plan. After draining, the drain valve must again be locked in the closed position. Any process that makes dust, like metalworking, grinding, Sanding or drilling either outdoors or vented to the outdoors is a potential source of stormwater pollution. That fine dust is quickly picked up by runoff and snowmelt. Make sure that any air pollution controls, like cyclones or baghouses, are operated and maintained correctly. When operating properly, these devices capture most of the particulates before they can be deposited on the roof or the ground. But you should be on the alert for unusually thick or heavy dust clouds that might indicate a malfunction in the pollution control equipment. Any dust that is deposited should be swept or cleaned up regularly, not hosed down or blown away. With the storm on the way, what have you left in its path to carry off into the stream? Is a storm warning a forecast for pollution, or are you ready for it? Cleaned up, sealed up, covered up. No threat to the rivers, thanks to everyday BMPs. It's that simple. Best management practices protect the environment and pay dividends in safety and productivity. Remember, practice good housekeeping. Keep your work area neat and organized. Take care of the materials and supplies you work with and keep them securely contained and dry. Store supplies and materials indoors or under cover. Respond quickly and effectively to spills, leaks, or any releases of industrial materials. And use only dry cleanup methods. No hosing down. Never use storm drains or ditches for cleaning stations or waste disposal. Prevent vehicles and equipment from leaking onto the pavement or ground. Keep your operating equipment running in top condition. Protect those outdoor waste and scrap bins from exposure to stormwater. And clean up dust before it accumulates around stacks or vents. It's just common sense. We all value the rivers and the wildlife, the streams and the oceans. So make the everyday BMPs part of your daily work schedule. Take the time to mind the details and to finish the job. And if you practice this every day, storm warnings are no worries.